you've mentioned the Need to Know podcast you done yesterday as we record this, the 15th of February. It was your first live with yourself and Ross.
Right.
Ross mentioned that there's a real disconnect between the Air Force and the White House
Yes.
on this topic and subject, and I don't think that will shock many. Who holds the cards here when it comes to the UFO discussion in the US government?
Well, that is to be determined, isn't it? I think the president of the United States is finding himself in the middle of that little tug of war as well. Just to bring your listeners and viewers up to speed here, um, it has been historic that the Air Force was sort of in the early days of this, the historical perspective was, well, these things are flying around in the sky. I guess we should call the Air Force in. And that's what got you Project Blue Book and all the other ones, Project Sign, Project Grudge, those were Air Force investigations. But remember one thing: if you study your UFO history, you'll find that even while all these sightings in the air were being reported, there was always a constant undercurrent, no pun intended, a constant undercurrent from the sea, where there were sightings in the sea. And so the Navy was always interested in it. They just didn't get the starring role. When we did Dark Skies, one of the things that Brent Friedman and I did is we had Majestic 12 as kind of the backdrop to the whole thing. And that's a whole nother discussion. But the person we put in charge was someone who was from the Office of Naval Intelligence. And so we didn't put an Air Force officer in. Now, where are we right now? We're in a situation where uh, you don't just take my word for it. Chris Mellon's written about this extensively. Um, but the Air Force was not helpful as they should have been in the preparation of those reports, and the Navy was. I mean, clearly you have a division of some kind going on where people in the Air Force would rather we just keep all this buttoned up and let's not go crazy here. And people in the Navy seem almost a little fed up because their pilots are encountering this stuff and they'd like answers. So, what Ross was saying on the show is that we have developed a source who has told us that a high level officer in the Navy has literally gone to the White House to say that the Air Force is lying to you about what's going on. And if if that bears fruit and turns out to be true, and we think it is, then that means that this issue has escalated beyond just something you and I, Andy, might talk about and kick around with our friends at a party, and is now something that, because Congress is interested, we passed that whistleblower legislation with the new National Defense Authorization Act. There are a lot of moving pieces, and I guess the only way I could say it is some of them are reinforcing behavior and taking away from behavior. The whole way that this has been dealt with over the years appears to be changing, and yes, the essence of your question is: do we have a division? It looks like we do. And let's face it, what's something that Washington could do that could happen in Washington right now that would change the game immediately? Leaks. I mean,
Mm.
Ross and I are journalists. We leaks are how you find things. People who want the truth out talk to journalists, and journalists print it, and then people react to it. So I think we are also getting to the place where the idea that there's a kind of a conflict between the Air Force and the Navy, which has historically, as we said, existed a long time, now may be coming into the open because the congressional committee people seem to be saying we want to look into these legacy programs. And by legacy programs, they mean programs designed to reverse engineering captured craft. So, all I can say to your listeners and viewers, fasten your seatbelts, folks. It's about to get crazy.